Thank you very much, Larry, for being with us. Really appreciate it. That is Larry Willis of the AFFL-CIO. Coming up here, markets, well, they may be climbing back. We're seeing some of it today specifically. But on the other hand, the economy apparently still has a fair distance to go. We talk about what more the government can do. What should it do? With Professor Stephen Kyle of Cornell as we talk about the possibility of further fiscal stimulus or perhaps even further monetary stimulus. That's next on Balance of Power on Bloomberg Radio.
For the Jewish Communal Fund, Noel Spiegel, former senior partner with Deloitte & Touche and past JCF president, discusses the advantages of a donor-advised fund over a private foundation.
There's a lot involved in having a private foundation. You need to engage attorneys, you need to engage accountants, file tax returns. At JCF, all of that is done for you. You don't have to get involved in anything other than making your contribution to your fund and then determining which grants that you want to make.
A JCF fund may be opened with a minimum $5,000 contribution of cash or appreciated securities and can be used as an alternative to or together with a private foundation.
If you have a foundation, you have to list all of the contributions that you made. Potentially anybody, because the information is public, can find out exactly which organizations a foundation has made charitable contributions to.
Let JCF simplify your philanthropy and protect your privacy. Learn more about JCF's private client group at jcfny.org.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
You're living in a world built on science.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
At Asda, we're helping you shop safely by keeping our stores clean and limiting customer numbers so you can keep 2 meters apart. With our Scan and Go mobile app, you can reduce contact at the till too. Asda, we're all in this together. Subject to availability, mobile data charges may apply.
Enjoy peace of mind with Ford. Relax and think about 3 months deferred payment on a new vehicle. Visualize an additional 3 months cashback. Breathe deeply and let 0% APR representative on selected vehicles wash over you. That's peace of mind from Ford. Current promotion ends 30th of June. Search Ford Peace of Mind for details.
Only available with Ford credit on selected finance plans. Exclusions and deposit restrictions may apply.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying
to standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Apple says it's reopening 75 more retail stores across the U.S. this week, including some locations in major markets such as New York, Los Angeles, and Boston. Stocks are pushing higher. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, they're all rising. Stocks are gaining on optimism over a recovering U.S. economy that's overriding concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. Right now, the S&P 500 index is up 62 points, up 2%. The Dow up 555 points, up by 2.1%. NASDAQ's up 182 points, up by 1.9%. 10-year down 7/30 seconds with a yield of 0.74%. Gold up 0.3%, 17.29 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude oil now up by 3%, 38.27 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That, David Weston, is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. From New York, this is Balance of Power. I am David Weston. We've already seen trillions of dollars in fiscal and monetary stimulus injected into the economy, but it's not at all certain that it's going to be enough. To take us through what's been done and what's left to do, we welcome now Stephen Kyle. He's Associate Professor at Cornell's Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management. So, Professor, welcome. It's great to have you here. First of all, give us your prescription. Have we done enough so far? Do we need to do more?
Well, we will need to do no more. I think the important thing to realize is that though we use business cycle terminology to describe what's happening, this isn't really a normal business cycle. Usually we have declining business conditions and layoffs, and marginal businesses start folding if they're less profitable, and enough of that, and there's your recession. This time, we all went home all at once, and the businesses have been slowly eroding the longer this goes on. So we do have some issues that are related to business cycles, but I don't think it's fair to call the payments we've seen so far a stimulus. It's more like relief payments to keep everybody whole until we can start things up again, and that will happen when people stop being afraid of the virus.
Well, and that's a key point. I mean, this is not a matter of they don't have the money to spend, even if they have this money to spend, because actually savings have gone up. Are they going to be too afraid to come out of their houses, go into restaurants, go into stores and spend the money? Have we really seen that kind of problem before?
Well, no, not really. We have, and I think it's fair to point out that problem, there's a real division among the people out there. People like me, for example, I'm a professional person with a salary. I'm still getting my salary, but I'm not allowed to go out and spend any of it. So yeah, my savings are increasing. But other people, millions of them, have nothing at all. They're hand to mouth, and they're not all of them getting the relief. So I may have a backlog of pent-up demand, but the bottom half of the income distribution is hurting and will continue to hurt if they don't get some more help.
Well, let's talk about that quite specifically, because we just heard from the Federal Reserve Chair, Jay Powell, earlier today, and he made this point in front of the Senate Banking Committee, saying that the burden has fallen, as it almost always does, disproportionately on the people who can least afford it. And unless we do something, we're going to keep increasing that inequality. It was narrowing to some extent, as I understand it, before the pandemic hit. Now it's widening again. What can we do specifically to address that issue?
Well, one thing we could do, and this may sound partisan, but it does work, is raise the minimum wage. And there will be a lot of pressure to do just that in next year after the election, particularly if, as we think might possibly happen, the Democrats end up in charge. They almost certainly will want to do that. So that will help the people at the bottom if they have a job. And therein comes the problem. When we stop being afraid of the virus, we are still going to have massive slack in our economy. Millions of people unemployed, lots of production lying idle. And the thing is, and Jay Powell also said this in his testimony last week, we know how to deal with this. It's an almost textbook case of Keynesian conditions with 0% interest rates, double-digit unemployment, and it screamed out for something like a huge infrastructure bill, which the Congress and the president tried and failed to come to terms with a while ago. I hope they come back to it again, although I got to say, my own view is in election year, don't hold your breath waiting for the Republicans and Democrats to agree on much of anything.
Well, Bloomberg is reporting today that the administration, the president, is seriously looking at a $1 trillion infrastructure bill that they might like to try to get through Congress in September before the election. No coincidence there. Is that enough to make a difference, really, at $1 trillion?
Well, the one they were looking at previously, that Nancy and Chuck Schumer walked out of a meeting with the president about, was $2 trillion.
Right.
So I think 1 million is not a bad start. And given the long lead time on a lot of these kinds of road and bridge projects, that starting now isn't probably a bad idea at all. But as far as what's needed, if you look at the North American Society of Civil Engineers, they'll tell you a number way higher than that. And I got to say, if there's a capital expenditure that you know you're going to have to do sooner or later, and you know you're going to have to use financing to do it, then why not when interest rates are zero? You're not going to see a better rate than that.
So you made a really important distinction earlier, Professor, between, on the one hand, relief, that is just taking care of people who don't have any money, and on the other, what is truly stimulus, you would call it, which is really getting the economy going. Is it too soon to do the stimulus? Do we need to keep doing the relief?
I would say if there are things that the government can do that are productive, that can be done with appropriate virus precautions, then go for it. And I would have thought road projects would be one of them. I mean, it used to be there was a day back not that long ago when politicians started salivating at the thought of a huge road project because there's pork for every district in a thing like that. So I do think that could help. It could put a lot of people to work, and it is, by definition, spread out over the whole country.
Professor, are we seeing something of a disconnect between the markets on the one hand and the economy on the other? I mean, the markets really are bouncing back. I mean, even today, they're back some more. And yet, the economic data we get are not that encouraging. I mean, retail sales were significantly higher than was expected today, but they're still well off year over year.
Oh, yeah. And to say that they're better this month is not to say that they're good.
Right.
They were flat on their back last month. Now they're a bit better, but still nowhere to smile about. I think it's important to realize that the statistics we're looking at right now aren't really appropriate to the problems that we're facing. And we saw that with the employment figures last week, when it turned out that because the Bureau of Labor Statistics didn't ever need a category for COVID workers who are not actually working but are being paid through their employers via a forgivable government loan, well, we never needed a category like that before, and they didn't have one. And so the statistics don't mean what they appear to mean. And I think it's important to realize that right now the most important thing is to keep people whole, attached to employment if we can, and do the best we can to make the virus fears go away, because the 70% of GDP that's consumption isn't going to come back to where it was until people, well, my personal measure is when my wife is willing to go out to dinner with me again.
Exactly.
Things will be a lot better.
We all have some version of that role. So finally, Professor, the one group of people we seem to be keeping whole are asset holders. Holders of securities, holders of valuable assets, because we're keeping those asset values up, but that's not helping the working stiffs.
No, only half the people have stocks. But do remember about the stock market, they are taking a longer view, and I don't think it's necessarily mistaken. I do think that a year or 2 years from now, we'll have a vaccine or therapies, or one way or another we'll be on the other side of this, and then there's no reason we can't see a return to growth. We may not be back where we would have been without the virus, but we're all poorer one way or another when we stop production for 6 months at a time.
Thank you so much, Professor. That's Professor Stephen Kyle of Cornell. Please give us a call when your wife is willing to go back out to dinner with you. That's an important bellwether. We're going to watch that. That does it for Balance of Power for today. I'm David Weston, and this is Bloomberg. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia. Are you seeing?
At Harford's, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone.
Happy birthday!
From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda, the power of dreams.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family, testing and tracing must become a new way of life. If you have symptoms, you need to get a test immediately. Don't leave home for any other reason. If you test positive, we will contact you to trace people who you might have infected. From now on, if you're told you've been exposed to an infected person, you must self-isolate for 14 days. Play your part and do the right thing so we can safely return to a more normal life. Go to nhs.uk or call 119. Stay alert, control the virus, save lives.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games. And big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was. But he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest editions.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from New York and New Jersey, streaming on YouTube. It is Tuesday, June 16, 2020. And man, we kicked off the day, Jason, with quite a retail sales report, jumping the most on record. We've already had a lot going on, and we're not done yet.
There's been a ton going on, and the market's still trying to make sense of it. It feels like there was a blip in the trade earlier in the day when we got some pretty sobering numbers in terms of new cases and new hospitalizations when it comes to COVID-19. The market since then has shrugged it off, and we're not quite at our highs of the day, but we are at the highest level in a few weeks.
Yeah, so we've definitely got a rally underway. We'll talk about that and lots more over the next few hours. Let's get you going, though, on this Tuesday with an update on that trading day. Here is Charlie Pellet. Hi, Charlie.
Well, hello there. You've summed it up very nicely in terms of what's going on. We've got optimism over a recovering U.S. economy, overriding concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. But first, this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service: a judge does plan to approve PG&E's $59 billion bankruptcy plan. Stocks higher across the board, as Jason mentioned. We did see that mid-morning dip. S&P now up 62, a gain there of 2%. We've got the Dow up 557, a gain there of 2.2%. NASDAQ up 174 points now, up 1.8%. 10-year down 8/30 seconds with a yield of 0.74%. Gold up 0.2%, 17.29 the ounce. And crude, West Texas Intermediate up 3.2%, 38.33 a barrel. Recapping, equities higher, S&P up 62, up 2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. And we'll be coming back to you throughout the show to keep an eye on the business headlines and an update on that market. Always worth watching these days. That is certainly true. Well, speaking of which, let's set the Business Week agenda with our team. Michael McKee, International Economics and Policy Correspondent for Bloomberg. Joining us on the phone from New York City, Dave Wilson, Stocks Editor for Bloomberg, also the author of the Chart and Stock of the Day. He's joining us from New Jersey. Dave, help us understand the trade here. We talked about a couple of those little blips through the day, but what's underneath it?
Well, you really have a broad-based advance. All 11 of the main industry groups in the S&P 500 higher by more than 1%. You know, that certainly tells you something. And beyond that, I mean, what jumps out is the shares of construction-related companies really kind of taking off in light of our report late yesterday that the Trump administration has an almost $1 trillion infrastructure proposal that it's working on. You know, you go from Caterpillar being up more than 5% to some of the building material providers. You know, Martin Marietta Materials up almost 8%. Vulcan Materials up more than 8%. United Rentals, for construction equipment up 8.7%. So that's certainly a group that jumps out here. And beyond that, a lot of times...
I just want to say, Dave, I feel like it's like, hey, just remember, everybody, we've talked about infrastructure spending before, and it hasn't quite happened. So be careful about getting too ahead of yourself.
Absolutely. And that $1 trillion number has certainly come up before as well. No question there. But beyond that, I was mentioning about the retail sales report. And a lot of times, the government's numbers come out, and you really don't see a whole lot of reaction in the shares. Very different story today, given the almost 18% increase we saw for May, more than twice what economists were expecting. So, you got the department store change, you got Gap, you got the off-price retailer Ross stores really taking off here.
Well, you teed up Mike McKee really well because we want to talk a little bit more about that retail sales report. I heard you breaking it down earlier this morning on surveillance, Mike. WOA is what I would call it.
Well, we figured it was all you, Carol, with that 188% increase in apparel.
That's the number that was remarkable. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you have to remember, though, when you're talking percentages, it's off a very low base.
Right.
And we're still many billions behind where we were in May of 2019. So it was a remarkable rebound, more than expected, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a full-throated V-shaped recovery is on or that will necessarily continue. A lot of this, of course, was online shopping, and we'll see when stores start to open up again, whether people actually go out and continue this or whether it was just kind of, I'm bored, I'm going to shop online.
And so, Mike, tell us how the data jive with what we're hearing from Chair Powell so far.
Well, Powell cast a much more pessimistic view today. He wants to make sure that nobody gets complacent, I guess, because he said, yeah, things are a little better in the data, and maybe we've bottomed out. But this is still going to be a long slog. We expect a rapid rebound in the beginning, and then it's going to flatten out, and we're still going to be well behind where we were. And so we need to keep going. We need to keep interest rates low. We'll do what we do. And then he sort of suggested, and you guys on the dais should do something as well. Congress should do some more fiscal help, although he dodged most of what suggestions he might have.
Yeah, he's been fairly careful about that, right? Basically saying, hey, don't forget to do your job, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
Right. I don't want to get in trouble if it doesn't work.
Right, exactly.
Well, and we know from last week, Mike, that, Chairman Jay Powell and his team at the Fed, I mean, they're there. They're our backstop, right? And our safety net.
Well, they're it. And, I was doing a piece this morning looking at how the Fed has got two messages. We are there to open up the markets, and all our programs and efforts have been aimed at opening up the markets, and it has worked, and the spreads have come in, markets are operating well. And then there's also, we are here to make sure that the American economy gets back to where it was, that we get back down to unemployment levels like we saw, and that inflation remains under control. And the problem with doing so much in so many areas is the law of unintended consequences. We don't know what's going to happen down the road. And that's after the last two, after the tech bubble burst,
right,
and of course after the great financial crisis, we have had unintended consequences.
Well, I was going to say, so we harken back maybe to one of the past crises, I should say. And what's interesting is, Dave Wilson, you have a chart coming up that's going to look at kind of where we were at the end of the last crisis when it comes to the equity markets.
Well, you can say the end of the last crisis or the start of the most recent bull market, the one that lasted for 11 years. So it's all in your perspective.
There you go. All right, we're looking forward to that at 3:30 Wall Street time. Dave Wilson, our thanks to you. Our thanks as well to Michael McKee, International Economics and Policy Correspondent, joining us there from our Bloomberg Interactive Brokers studio. Carol, lots to come.
Oh, my God.
On this show. Later this hour, we're going to hear from the COO of FedEx Office. It'll always be Kinko's to me.
I know it will.
Remember when you used to have to actually go to Kinko's to get stuff run off and things like that, print things out?
Remember printing? Well, I still remember printing.
Well, I know you remember printing.
But listen,
going somewhere to do it.
They have a great lens into insight into what's going on in small business. So we will talk with her about a lot of things. Also, the well-known and well-respected Dr. William Hazeltine. He's back with us. Very well-known in biotech and healthcare. He's also got, of course, an update on the virus, but also a playbook for families when it comes to COVID-19. And that's what we've been missing, a playbook. And so he's got some helpful advice on that.
Yeah, looking forward to catching up with him. Also, the CEO of Kayak and Open Table, giving us a window into the worlds of travel and restaurants. And a scoop on the Bloomberg today, Hydro. It's sort of wanting to do for rowing what Peloton did for indoor cycling. He's going to be along to tell us what his vision is.
Yeah, CEO Bruce Smith will be with us. Plus, we've got some telling Bloomberg news stories. I've just got to point out, I'm being a black CEO in the tech industry, and also a fascinating story on an ex-eBay CEO and his texts that kind of going after a blogger, just going to say.
Cockroaches, bloody pig mask, you can't make it up. All right, let's do the Bloomberg Business Week Bite of the Day, one number that tells us a lot. Today's number, Carol, it's $519 billion. Apple's App Store facilitating sales of $519 billion last year, underscoring the influence of the digital marketplace in the global economy. This is according to a study supported by the company. The estimate includes $413 billion worth of physical goods and services, such as apps for buying clothes, food, ride sharing, and travel. Maybe they're contributing to that retail sales number.
It just shows you the amount of, business activity and volume that's happening on that platform. So a really great bite of the day. All right, stick around, folks. We have got so much to cover over the last few hours. A lot going on, certainly on this day. A little bit of Fed, a little bit of retail sales, and of course, we're watching the virus. First up, though, let's get to World and National News headlines. For that, we turn things over to Nancy Lyons in our 99.1 newsroom in Washington, D.C. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Carol. President Trump is taking some action on police reform, signing an executive order in the Rose Garden today that calls for better training on the use of force. He says chokeholds will be banned nationwide, except when an officer's life is at risk.
We're looking at
new advanced and powerful, less lethal weapons to help prevent deadly interactions.
Trump strongly denounced efforts to defund police departments, saying there'd be chaos. Senior administration officials say departments that implement reforms will be rewarded with federal grants. The coronavirus is showing its staying power. No state has gone 2 straight weeks without an increase in COVID-19 cases. In at least 14 states, the rate of increase surpasses the average number of tests. But there is some progress to report in the search for a COVID-19 treatment.
Dexamethasone, a widely used low-cost inflammatory, has been shown to improve survival in coronavirus patients who needed breathing assistance. That's according to a study from the University of Oxford that was cut short because of its positive result. This is the first research to show life-saving promise against a pandemic that has killed more than 400,000 people around the world. Gilead's antiviral drug remdesivir has also been approved to treat COVID-19. It's only been shown to reduce recovery times. Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Americans are more unhappy today than they've been in nearly 50 years. That's according to the COVID response tracking study conducted in late May by NORC at the University of Chicago. The survey finds just 14% of American adults say they are very happy. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
People love a good story. They like it even better when that story is real.
Is this something strange in the numbers?
Paul Sweeney.
That seems like a big miss to me.
Bonnie Quinn.
New funds getting started in order to take advantage of what might be a moment.
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern.
If Russia does throw this spanner in the works, what does it do to relations going forward?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
How important is that statement there?
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Listen, as a hiring manager, I've got to tell you, the best job candidate isn't always the typical candidate. Sometimes they're a grad of life.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
Sometimes the best candidates aren't the ones you're used to.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is driven by uncertainty. At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone.
Happy birthday!
From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, you must now wear a face covering at all times, avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Hi, I'm an ad for Voxy, the mobile network that gives you endless social media without eating your data. Plus, there's no contract, so you can cancel any time. Get endless social media plus a whopping 12 gig for just £10 a month. What? Don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. Get your SIM today at voxy.co.uk. Voxy. Stay connected, stay endless. Offer ends 25th of June. Endless social requires 30 days rolling plan, some general data and does not include voice and video calls. 25 gigabytes roaming, fair use and terms apply.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything, from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
Kill. O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Want to begin with a headline out of California. Virus cases in that state up 1.4%. That is less than the 7-day average of 2.1%. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. Stocks higher for a third day. Optimism over a recovering U.S. economy is overriding concern that coronavirus cases are worsening. The S&P 500 index now up by 71 points, up 2.3%. The Dow up almost 650 points, up 2.5%. 26,410 up now by 648. NASDAQ is up 200 points, up 2.1% at 99.26. 10 years down 9/30 seconds with a yield of 0.75%. Gold up 0.2%, 17.27 the ounce. And crude oil, West Texas Intermediate, now up 3.3%, 38.36 a barrel. Recapping, S&P up 71, up 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
It is indeed. All right, Charlie, thank you so much. And Charlie mentioned some of these virus headlines. We did see Florida reporting new cases rising to the highest level since the pandemic began. Texas saw hospitalizations surge. Two more signs that the virus outbreak is worsening in some U.S. states. And meantime, we had Beijing shutting its schools on concern about new infections as China started testing all shipments of imported meat. They had a fresh outbreak that was linked to another wholesale seafood and meat market in the capital. So back with us to talk about where we are and what we need to do and how we kind of deal with what's going on, especially when you come at it from different angles when it comes to the virus, is Dr. William Haseltine. He is chairman and president of Access Health International, and he joins us on the phone from Connecticut. Dr. Haseltine, it's great to have you back with us. What do you make of the most recent virus headlines?
Well, I'm looking right now at what's happened in Florida. And in many ways, it was predictable. It was averaging about 500, between 400 and 500, 600, up to 800 cases sometimes for about a month and a half. And then starting in the end of May, early June, it just started to rise.
A couple of days ago, there were 2,500 new cases, and now there may be about 2,000 new cases. It's pretty serious. And what it means is that the precautions that people were taking were eased off about 2 weeks ago, and we're now seeing that as spikes in newly diagnosed infections, mostly because people are getting mildly ill or seriously ill. And that's happening in many parts of the country. Some other parts, like New York City, it's still relatively calm. People in New York got really scared, and they know it's important to keep social distance. But even in New York, people are beginning to forget.
And so what have we learned about our initial response, Dr. Hazeltine, that we can maybe put into practice now? Because there is this, I think, strong resistance on the part of both government leaders and just everyday people to go back to a full-on shutdown.
Yeah, I understand that. It's fully understandable. And the way I look at it is the following. We paid a price, but we didn't get the benefit. That's because we didn't do it right. We didn't really enforce contact tracing and mandatory isolation. And people weren't particularly observant. All the people weren't observant about the precautions they were urged to take. So we never cleared the infection like a number of other countries did, or reduced it down to a very manageable level of, say, a half a dozen, 5, 6 in the whole country. We just didn't do that. And so we paid a price, but we didn't get a benefit. The net result is we're now going to end up in a different situation, which is, I call it back to the future. When I was born 75 years ago, it was right on the cusp of the vaccine and antibiotic miracles. Before that time, people lived with the understanding that death could strike them at any moment. Even I remember polio. I remember being terrified of rheumatic fever. Those are things we couldn't control. And in fact, we built America. We built the world in a world without vaccines and in a world without antibiotics. But you pay a price that we're beginning to understand. And that price is death is at your shoulder at all moments. And it seems that we're willing to adapt to that. We've adapted in the past. We'll adapt again. We have exiting the time, at least for now, where we have a free ride and don't have to worry about dying of an infectious disease tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. So how do we do this? Because, you're right. We're kind of in this interesting situation. And yes, history has shown us we can forge ahead and we can, build society, but there is a cost to it. So as we reopen, do we do it? You will pay the price.
Yes, we do it. I happen to agree we don't have any choice because Americans seem to be undisciplined, and we don't have either the leadership, the governments, or the government apparatus that we need. We need leaders that are clear, consistent, credible, and compassionate. We need governance that works. And we need a public health service, very much like an army, that has unitary command from the top to the bottom. When the president says it's up to the governors, he's right. He doesn't have a tool he can use like he can use the military abroad. We don't have that tool. When the governors say it's up to the municipalities and the cities, I live in New York, and you can see the tension between the governor and the mayor. And the mayor might even, in some places, or the county leader may say, it's up to the local authorities. We don't have unitary command in public health service. If there's a lesson we learn from this, it's we need unitary command to protect us internally as we do externally. Our biggest threats in my lifetime have not come from abroad. They've come from diseases within our own country. Whether it was HIV/AIDS or whether it was a number of other diseases, polio that I can remember.
Right.
Those are the big threats. And we've not prepared for those like we are prepared for external threats.
Right.
All right, we're going to continue this conversation in just a minute. So thoughtful, as always. We're going to talk about your new book as well. It's called A Family Guide to COVID. Dr. William Haseltine, he is, of course, chair president of Access Health International, one of the wisest voices and clearest voices out there, helping us understand what's actually happening, what those numbers mean, and what they mean not just now, but going forward. So looking forward to continuing the conversation with him.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week on this Tuesday. Carol Massar, Jason Kelly, right here on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Economic optimism is fueling a strong rally on Wall Street after retail sales came roaring back in May. The government reported a gain of nearly 18%, more than double expectations. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 635, the S&P is up 70, the Nasdaq up 193. Apple is opening another 75 of its U.S. retail stores this week, including some in major markets like New York, L.A., and Boston. Most will let shoppers inside with appropriate safety precautions. Drug makers are getting a lot of attention lately for their work on coronavirus treatments and vaccines, but today investors are applauding Eli Lilly for a successful study of a breast cancer drug. Eli Lilly is up 16%. One of the nation's largest shopping malls has missed a third consecutive monthly debt payment. Sources say Mall of America failed to make a $7 million payment for June. The mall partially reopened last week. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
It's a stock market driver.
Now they're starting to see a little bit of panic from policymakers.
It's a global political force.
How will this epidemic reshape big tech and its relationship with Washington?
It's a virus.
This coronavirus is a global pandemic.
Is there a safe haven?
And the facts matter.
The situation is so bad because of the virus that is simply unavoidable.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Economics.
All this doom and gloom is out there.
Finance.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like when your week off is forecast warm and sunny. Or when there's an extra unclaimed sausage left on the barbecue. Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage. Yeah, that feeling. Nice, isn't it? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find better solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed, retrieve data fast. Scalability, grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity, easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, There are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
How do hockey fans know what day it is? Just turn on the Locked on NHL podcast, where our rotating cast of hockey experts guide you through the week with a different theme show for every day. From big news Monday to recap Friday.
But we've got a couple of news items that are noteworthy in the NHL in the last week, one of which is below the NHL, and we'll bring that up first. So the AHL announced officially, this has been speculated for weeks and weeks, but the AHL...
Search Locked on NHL on TuneIn to listen. Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games. And big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was. But he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
I have to say, Jason, this is one of my favorite voices when it comes to the virus and where we are. Right?
Absolutely. We were messaging in the break here, and I said, he's great. Scary, but great.
Well, you know what? It kind of confirms some of the conversations we've been having at home as things have been reopening, and we've just been talking about retrenching because we're a little concerned. All right, we're going to get back to Dr. William Hazeltine in just a moment. Let's get back to Charlie Pellet with a check on the world of business. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Carol Master. Higher across the board. Stocks up for a third day as optimism over a recovering U.S. economy overrides concerns that coronavirus cases are worsening. Right now, the S&P 500 index is advancing by 68 points, up 2.2%. The Dow up 630 now, up 2.4%. NASDAQ up 183, up by 1.9%. 10-year yield 0.74%. Gold up $2 the ounce, higher by 0.1%, 17.27 on gold. Crude West Texas Intermediate up 2.7%, 38.13 a barrel for West Texas Intermediate crude. Florida's reporting that new cases rose to the highest since the pandemic began. Texas saw hospitalization surge, more signs that the coronavirus outbreak is worsening in some states. Beijing shut its schools on concern about new infections. World economies are slowly beginning to reopen as health officials and governments keep an eye out for any reemergence of the coronavirus. Ann Applebaum is a senior fellow for international affairs at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. She was interviewed this morning on Bloomberg Television.
The European Union is trying to coordinate the openings, and so there have been a lot of openings this week, and there'll be a lot of more inter-European travel this week. And my guess is that the impact of that we'll see in a month or so, and then you'll see adjustments next month.
We'll have more on the coronavirus for you coming up in just a moment. The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. The PG&E bankruptcy judge says he will approve the company's plan. T-Mobile had its first big network meltdown since leapfrogging AT&T to become the number 2 wireless carrier in the United States. T-Mobile shares on an update for the rest of the market now slumping by 1.7%. And a source tells Bloomberg Chesapeake Energy, the North American pioneer of shale fracking, skipped an interest payment due on June 15th on some of its bonds as it prepares for a bankruptcy filing. Chesapeake shares plunging by 18.9%. Recapping, S&P up 68, up 2.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, let's get back to our conversation with Dr. William Hazeltine, Chair-President of Access Health International. Joining us on the phone from Connecticut. He's also got a new book. It's called A Family Guide to COVID. And one of the things I love about this, Dr. Hazeltine, is it's a book that lives right now, but this is a fast-moving story, so you give people access to your website because you're going to keep updating this. Tell us what led you to write this.
I remember during the early days of HIV/AIDS, so many people had questions. and there was no place they could go for answers. This is even more serious than that because it's kids that are affected. If you're a parent, you have kids that are asking you questions all the time. I'm a grandparent, and I've got a lot of grandchildren asking me questions, and their parents asking me questions. And so I decided that I would write a book to answer questions in a very simple way, the kind of questions that kids are going to ask, or parents will ask themselves and each other. Kids like, what's happened, Mom? Why can't I go play with my friends? Or how long is this going to go on? Or will science save us? Adults are going to say things like, should I really put masks on my kids when they go to play with their friends? Should they play with any friends? What's the situation today? It changes. As we know, this is a ever-changing situation. So this is what I call a living book, in the sense that the book will change along with our knowledge. Questions will disappear. Answers will change. There is no set of answers yet. So it's a living document, and it's been a lot of fun to do, and I hope it's helpful.
I have to say, we just went through a conversation with my daughter last night. She's 17, getting ready to be a senior in high school. Jason has a teenager the same age and another one, and a little one. But she was like, I just miss my friends, Mom. And they've done the Zoom thing and they do everything. And you do think about, like, we don't know what school's going to be like in the fall. Her world is being turned upside down, and we're so happy we're healthy. But you do realize the mark that this is having, on a younger generation.
Absolutely you do. And it's at a time when young people have to get out. This is what young people have to do, whether they're children, whether they're teenagers. I've talked to a lot, to do this book, I talked to a lot of kids. I rounded up every grandchild and child I could find, and a lot of teenagers. I talked to a teenage boy who said, this whole thing is a plot to keep me from my girlfriend. That's life. That's what parents are dealing with.
Yeah. No, they are. And I think we do think a lot about, as Carol mentioned, kids going off to college and being deprived of that experience. But, I think you provided some really good historical perspective in that regard, Dr. Hazeltine, that, this is new to all of us in many ways. And yet, this is something that as a society we've dealt with before, and we just have to learn to adapt in many ways.
We do, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say, I was listening to a conversation on Bloomberg radio earlier just about a vaccine, and I know there are some folks that are saying, we could get it, later this year. What's the reality? And do we have to, until we have a vaccine, life will not be normal?
Well, we lived as I said, for centuries without vaccines.
Yeah.
So you can live. Secondly, there are things you can do. Other countries have shut this virus down almost completely, not completely, and it won't be gone completely. And we are going to have drugs that are temporary vaccines for anybody who's exposed. We will have drugs within a year that will prevent anybody from being exposed from falling ill. I'm virtually certain of that. Vaccines, I give it a 50-50 shot.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, as always, we really appreciate your time, Dr. William Hazeltine. The new book is called A Family Guide to COVID. And when you pick it up, you should note, just as he said, it's a living book. And so you'll be able to get into a website that'll be constantly updated because the questions are changing. And as he said, the answers are changing. I think about the conversations we have now, Carol, versus what we were having a month ago, 6 weeks ago. We're in our 14th week of doing this broadcast this way.
I know, right?
Crazy.
And I think what's also interesting and crazy is that there are still so many questions about kind of getting our heads around it and getting back to normal. And I think what he says is at some point, you're going to have to get out there and there will be a price to pay for it.
And consequences for sure. And we'll all have to adjust. All right. That was Dr. William Hazeltine, Chair President of Access Health International. His new book, A Family Guide to COVID.
All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's get another check on world and national news headlines. For that, we turn things over once again to Nancy Lyons in our D.C. newsroom. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Carol. President Trump is addressing the national call for police reforms by signing an executive order that improves training and weeds out applicants with bad records on other forces. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman has more from Washington.
The president said the American people demand law and order and back their local police.
Many of the same politicians now presenting themselves as the solution failed for decades on schools, jobs, justice, and crime. President Obama and Vice President Biden never even tried to fix this. They had no idea how to do it.
The president would also direct federal money to having social workers join police calls that involve mental illness, domestic violence, and substance abuse. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
Researchers in England say they have the first evidence a drug can improve survival from COVID-19. A steroid called dexamethasone reduced deaths by up to a third in severely ill hospitalized patients. The study was led by the University of Oxford and involved thousands of patients randomly assigned to get the drug or just have usual care. Dexamethasone reduced deaths by 35% in patients who needed treatment with breathing machines, 20% in those needing supplemental oxygen. It showed, though, little effect on less ill patients. Confidence in air travel is showing no signs of improving. In fact, a recent survey by the industry's main trade group finds only 45% of those asked in late May or early June said they would be prepared to board a plane. That's down from 60% in April who said they'd fly. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Hey, y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Are you interested in it?
At Harford's, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone.
Happy birthday!
From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find belter solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get your cook on with Asda, with Uncle Ben's rice 250 grams for just £1, and our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games and big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was. But he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen. How do hockey fans know what day it is? Just turn on the Locked on NHL podcast, where a rotating cast of hockey experts guide you through the week with a different theme show for every day. From big news Monday to recap Friday.
But we've got a couple of news items that are noteworthy in the NHL in the last week, one of which is below the NHL, and we'll bring that up first. So the AHL announced officially, this has been speculated for weeks and weeks, but the AHL...
Search Locked on NHL on TuneIn to listen.
Hi, this is Mike Tirico, introducing you to Sports Uncovered, the newest podcast series from the storytellers at NBC Sports that will shine a fresh light on the most unforgettable moments in sport.
The reason why I'm smiling, I might get in trouble for this.
Search Sports Uncovered to start listening today.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
As the science and medical world continues to learn more about COVID-19, we're all learning how to best live with it. Because the news is always changing, TuneIn helps you make sure you're getting the latest information on the pandemic with live streams of CNN, MSNBC, BBC, and more. Plus, evidence-driven podcasts like Coronavirus, Fact versus Fiction, and Podcast 19 for the latest stories and reports. Search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We've got a Tuesday rally underway. Stocks higher for a third day as optimism over a recovering U.S. economy overrides concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. Treasury yields rose. The dollar strengthened. Right now, the 10-year is down 8/32 with a yield of 0.74%. Gold is up 0.1%, $17.27 the ounce. Big move for crude today, up 2.7%, up $1 a barrel at $38.14. Equity markets higher across the board. S&P up 61 now at 31.28, a gain of 2%. Nasdaq is up 166 points, up 1.7%. The Dow up 575. That is a gain of 2.2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser here with you, just checking on the most read stories on the Bloomberg. I mean, it's really all about, in many ways, this, I don't know, like bifurcated thing that we see going on, Carol, and Charlie touched on it. You know, all this news about the virus, especially when you look at Florida and Texas, and yet a market that's going to be up, it looks like, for the third straight day.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's just, I think that headline we got yesterday about the Fed buying corporate bonds, that was a really, I feel like, aggressive move by the Fed to really backstop basically, corporations, right? And I think just reminds everyone that they are going to keep on doing things to support the markets. And what's interesting is, reading some analysis, there was folks who said, I don't know why the Fed did it, that it wasn't necessary, but it did definitely, as soon as you saw some sagging and weakness in the markets, it did look like, there was speculation about the Fed doing that, kind of watching the financial markets, because it definitely did provide a floor under the equity trade.
Yeah, it's interesting, too. I mean, not to lose sight of one of the big stories that we've also been following, which is the reaction across the board at a lot of companies, and I think on a personal level to the protests around racial injustice and racial inequality. You're seeing a lot of folks galvanize around this Friday, the Juneteenth holiday, which of course celebrates the emancipation of slaves, and you're starting to see a couple companies move to say we're going to declare it a holiday. You're seeing some banks say they're going to close early to acknowledge that holiday. So it'd be interesting to see whether that catches on. It could be at least symbolic in terms of folks taking it seriously in the short term.
Well, and let's not, put off that, as Mike put in context, that retail sales report, percentages don't necessarily tell you anything because they're coming from a low bottom, but nonetheless, it does show economic data points moving to improvement, and that's a big deal. So we want to talk a little bit about what's going on in the economy and how small businesses are dealing with it. Certainly a very important aspect of our economy. One company that stayed open during the pandemic is FedEx Office. It's the retail arm of the shipping giant. Kim Dixon is Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer at FedEx Office, and she joins us on the phone from Plano, Texas. Kim, nice to have you here with us. First of all, if you would indulge us, Texas, we keep seeing a jump in virus cases. I think it was 4% today, exceeding the 2.2% 7-day average. What's it like on the ground in Texas right now?
I think there's a little bit of a dichotomy between the results that you hear from the testing and what you see, because we are at level 3 in terms of market openness. So like restaurants, for example, are at 75% occupancy levels. So the malls are busy, stores are open. So the population is acting very differently than what you might think based on the stats.
Yeah, it's really interesting, as you say, this sort of tale of two things in many ways. So, Kim, talk to us about small businesses, because a lot of the folks that you're alluding to when it comes to, the doors being open are small businesses. That is the sector of the economy, a really important one that you understand. How are small businesses faring amid all of this? What do you read?
Well, what we're seeing is as markets open, they are anxious to recover and reopen and move forward as quickly as they can. They've got to recoup all that revenue, right? So they are doing everything that they can to, one, communicate to their customers that they have different standards now kind of post-COVID, that they're, cleaning their environment more, that they're acknowledging social distancing, that maybe they have occupancy limits, and you're seeing them place signage in their stores, communicating that to customers. On the marketing side, we're seeing everybody. There are banners all over the place saying, we're open, come on in. Lots of signage. People are promoting their business. We're seeing restaurants, for example, that have moved from like standard permanent signage to single-use menus, where they're tearing up the menu at your table after you order. We're seeing lots of curbside pickup in addition to sit-down restaurants. So a lot of activity in the small business space just to get that traffic coming in and get those revenues up.
Kim, how does it compare to a year ago? I think we're always, we were talking earlier about the retail sales number, tremendous percentage gains, but percentages don't tell a story, a really full story, because especially when you're coming off of significant lows and shutdowns. So I'm curious, the small business activity that you're seeing, how does it compare to, normal times or to a year ago when it was more normal?
Well, not everything's open yet, and not everybody's as aggressive about it. So I think we're just starting to see that. And it does vary across the country in terms of markets. So I'm giving you a reflection of Dallas. But I would say, probably 75% of the businesses are back up and running. And you're seeing them start this kind of marketing machine to get their business going again.
And when you think about consumer behavior through the lens of a lot of these small businesses, what are you seeing that's temporary, Kim, and what do you think is more permanent in terms of the way, people interact with your stores or, what they expect from them?
Well, that's an interesting question. So I think for sure all of the cleaning and sanitizing protocols that we've put in place, I bet they're probably here to stay. It really does bring trust with our customers that, we care about their safety and we care about our environment. And I honestly don't see that going away. Right now, we've got social distancing practices in place. I think that could go on for quite some time in our environment. We did extend some of our hours for vulnerable population to come, and I know other retailers have done the same. I think that's a nice thing, and that may continue to stay. What I don't know about are things like masks and plexiglass shields and how long that'll stay. We've adopted masks in our stores, and we've put plexiglass shields in some of our environments. I don't know how long the consumer is going to be looking for that.
But it does sound like what you're seeing is a lot of small businesses really trying to get up and running again. And, as a result, they're needing services from you guys in order to be able to do that.
Yeah, and what we're finding is, you're either a spa owner because you like the spa business, you're a gym owner because you like the gym business. They're not all marketers. So they're struggling with their marketing materials. We know, 20% of them don't even know where to start. So that's why we were excited this week to launch our alliance with Canva. So Canva is like the leading online digital content provider, and they've got a robust suite of online tools and templates and photography. And literally, even a beginner could design marketing materials and content that they could use online digitally. Right. They could do all that in 10 minutes. You could come up with a really great flyer or a design. And then with the power of the FedEx Office network, you can either go pick that up same day in one of our stores or have it shipped to you.
Got it. Kim, thank you so much. Kim Dixon, she's Executive VP, Chief Operating Officer at FedEx Office, on the phone from Texas.
All right. For those of you listening in New York, D.C., San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week continues. If you're listening on Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, Bay State Business is next right here. We're going to dig into the economy, those retail numbers, Jay Powell, what he said, what those numbers mean. That's next. This is Bloomberg.
Business is like...
At Harford's, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone.
Happy birthday!
From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Let's tune in Sports on this day. On this day in 1998, the Detroit Red Wings win back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, defeating the debutant finalist Washington Capitals 4-1 for a 4-0 series sweep.
9 seconds, they count them down. The Detroit Red Wings have won the Stanley Cup 1998.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search Sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
On the Bloomberg Business app and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading. We've got the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all moving higher right now. 61-point jump in the S&P 500 index, up by 2%. NASDAQ up 166, up 1.7%. And the Dow's up 567 points, up by 2.2%. Stocks higher for a third day as optimism over a recovering American economy overrides concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. Treasury yields rose, the dollar strengthened. S&P 500 index now up the most in a week, with energy, healthcare, and materials leading all 11 industry sectors higher. Lots of questions about just how quickly the U.S. jobs market can heal from coronavirus employment cuts. Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia was on Bloomberg Radio and Television this morning addressing that particular issue.
We have had a very high unemployment. We've had too many Americans put out of work, and we know the hardship that's meant for them and their families. At the same time, we got here by a very different route than we got into the Great Depression. And I think the jobs report we put out, 10, 11 days ago, suggests that we're going to come out of it by a different route, that we put 2.5 million Americans back to work in the month of May. And I think that's a trend that's continuing right now.
Citigroup CEO Michael Corbat says employees who want to use one of their personal days this Friday to commemorate Juneteenth, the day enslaved people discovered they were free in the U.S. For those employees who plan to work, Corbat has asked workers to help advance the commitments to change that the bank has made. Citigroup shares, they're up now by 2.6%. Microsoft shares are higher, says it has increased network and data center capacity, opening new sites and striking deals with internet service providers to accommodate everybody working at home. Microsoft up now by 2.1%. And Amazon is deploying software in its warehouses to automatically warn employees that they are too close to colleagues. Amazon up 1.2%. S&P up 60, up 2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
All right, let's do a little Business Week economics. It's been very busy on that front between that blockbuster number, or at least a number that caught people by surprise. Even as you dug down, you sort of got these elements that still made you say, if you were Carol Masser at least, whoa. So we're going to break that down, as well as what we heard from Jay Powell, what we've heard so far, the first of a 2-day testimony that he has up on Capitol Hill. Let's turn to Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg. She's in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. Yelena Shalecheva, Senior U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics. She joins us on the phone from Long Island. So, KH, I want to start with you. Jay Powell, what do we need to know? I mean, we've heard a lot from this guy over the past few weeks. He's been tip of the spear in many ways, or certainly the Fed has. What's the key takeaway?
Well, the Fed chair, I think, is describing reality when he says that, yes, the economy, look at the May employment report, look at how much jobs rose. It's definitely coming off the lows. I think what he said today is it's maybe even the beginning of recovery, but still in much worse shape than it was
before the lockdowns, before everyone had to shut down. And I think that's what he wants everyone to remember. Yes, it's good that things are getting better, but they're not good enough yet. So I think that's a very important point. Maybe part of the reason he's saying this is because he does want to make it clear that what the data show you is there is still a need to help some people, because the last thing he's going to do is tell Congress, Republicans or Democrats, that yes, you better get out there and renew that program, do this, do that, right? He's going to stay away from that. But by underscoring the fact that there's going to be a lot of people without jobs, even after the economy gets into recovery, I think that sends the message. So maybe that's part of the reason, but it's also how it looks. Yelena's going to get into the retail sales for us, but you combine retail sales and jobs and a couple other things, and you say, gee, maybe things are better than we thought.
Actually, cue Yelena. Yelena, come on in, because you actually put out some research specifically on that retail sales report, and you said maybe slow down, everybody. Don't get too excited about it.
Okay. So actually, Chair Powell today made a note of that, and he acknowledged a stronger than expected gain in the main retail sales, but he ascribed it to the aid coming from the measures including the Paychecks Protection Program, basically the fiscal support from and monetary policy support as the crisis was evolving. So he also said that the Fed remains agnostic with respect to the strength of the recovery, and that is the theme of all of his latest remarks. So what he's trying to say is that in case of retail sales, for example, that this rebound follows a significant drop in activity. So in terms of retail sales, a 22% decline over the previous 3 months was followed by an 18% rebound. But activity still remains below its pre-crisis levels.
Right.
So retail sales are 8% below what we saw back in January. So it will take time for that to get back to the trend.
Right. It's easy to come back from such a terrible level, and you do wonder about, okay, so what's going to be the economic momentum on the other side, Kathleen, especially when, we see stories about temporary job losses will become permanent ones, and you talk about, a lot of folks.
Well, that's what we don't know, right? Yeah. I think it seems logical, right? It seems how can we conclude that a lot of small businesses don't just feel shattered, and not only they feel shattered, they are shattered. They're not coming back. So, and I think that's one of Jay Powell's biggest worries. He's mentioned that many times, and that's such an important part of the economy. But that's one thing we don't know. And I would say never underestimate the appetite of the American consumer. And once people can get out and go to more stores, I don't know about you guys, but on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, most of the retailers are still closed.
Right.
So I just wonder myself if maybe this rebound may continue more than people think, because if there's one thing people do in this country, they shop, and they've been locked at home.
Then
I think the question is how long because you're with me, right?
No, I'm totally with you. But Jason, man, he needs some new sneakers. He left them at work. He's like, I think there's a little withdrawal going on there.
But I think it's a really interesting point, Kathleen, because
it's a social thing for all of us.
We are seeing people, when they are allowed to really get out there. I mean, numbers notwithstanding, even the conversation we just had with the COO of FedEx office, she basically like, look, I'm in Dallas, people are out, the malls are bumping, and this is going to happen.
I want to throw in because I want to get Jay. Can I just want to let Yelena in on this? But first, I just want to remind. I'm going to be speaking to Rob Kaplan on Daybreak Australia today at 6:30 p.m. And of course, he lives in Dallas. He lives in Texas. That's one of the things I definitely want to ask him about. Yelena.
Yeah, and they're at phase 3. So, Yelena, what do you want to add?
Just, I agree with you guys on the spirit of an American consumer. I'm itching myself to go out there and spend some money. But as long as you have this money, as long as you have the means to spend. So remember, the gap is still huge between the pre-crisis trend in wage income and what we're seeing at the current levels. That was more than offset by stimulus checks over at the peak of the crisis. But what happens going into the second half of the year when this support gets reduced or eliminated? So that's what I want to see.
You want to see whether people actually have the money to spend. They may want to. They may want to get out and shop, but they may not.
Wouldn't it be a nice surprise if all these programs that have started, including the Main Street Lending Program, actually end up getting some money in the pockets of the business owners who then really can say, even if I'm not at full speed, I'm getting back. I'm getting back online. I'm working again. I can bring some of my employees back. I think that's the X factor that nobody knows right now.
Yeah. It's one of the many, many things we still don't know about what happens next. All right. Thank you both for a spirited conversation. Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor for Bloomberg. She's back home in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio. And Yelena Shalecheva, Senior U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics, joining us on the phone from Long Island.
So many questions, Jason Kelly.
So many questions.
Are you antsy to get out there and go shopping?
Not really. Not really to go shopping.
Really.
I was a little antsy to go, have a burger, which I did, and that was great. But I also have the benefit of the suburbs, and I can get out and about a little bit more. All right, let's head to Nancy Lyons now in D.C. She's got world national headlines.
Thanks, Jason. Donald Trump has signed an executive order to reform police practices. The president is encouraging state and local officials to ban the use of law enforcement chokeholds, except if the officer's life is at stake. His order also calls for better training and better tracking of problem officers.
Beyond the steps we are taking today, I am committed to working with Congress on additional measures.
Both the House and Senate are working on reform packages. Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden has managed to turn months of coronavirus lockdown into a fundraising machine.
Just last night, the Biden campaign pulled in its biggest one-day haul yet, $6 million at a virtual event headlined by someone who may be on Biden's running mate shortlist, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Biden's team says it raised nearly $140 million along with the Democratic National Committee during the lockdown months of April and May. And next week, it's enlisting the Democrats' all-time biggest fundraiser, former President Barack Obama, for an event aimed at grassroots supporters. The minimum donation is just $15 for that June 23rd fundraiser. Nathan Hager, Bloomberg Radio.
Two Justice Department officials say they're willing to testify before the House Judiciary Committee next week about how the department under Attorney General William Barr has been more politicized. Subpoenas have been issued for two officials, Aaron Zelinsky, who quit the Roger Stone case when the Attorney General said he wanted to drop the case. The other is John Elias in the Antitrust Division. He'll discuss the department's inquiry into a fuel efficiency deal between major automakers and the state of California. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
Business and finance have always held surprises, but this is brand new.
The move risks fueling more demonstrations, and Stokes' concern that essential freedoms will be curbed.
Karen Moscow and Nathan Hager.
Chinese lawmakers approved national security legislation.
Expert navigation through uncharted territory.
Tell us the range of outcomes that we could see on that front.
Bloomberg Daybreak, weekday mornings at 5 Eastern. On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
At Bloomberg, we know a lot of financial experts.
He's a former president of the European Central Bank.
Your Global Financial Warriors is a classic textbook.
A lot of political experts.
If you were advising the President of the United States, what's the thing that he's not doing that he should do?
And lucky for you, we know a lot of science experts, too.
You talked about those reagents which are necessary for the testing. It's also the behavioral psychological approach.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
This July 4th, tune in to the...
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. We can replace your battery at over 700 stores and garages, or even at your home or work with our mobile experts, so you can enjoy an engine that starts first time, every time, and start enjoying the open road again.
Are we nearly there yet?
From battery replacements to tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, you must now wear a face covering at all times, avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Hi, I'm an ad for Voxy, the mobile network that gives you endless social media without eating your data. Plus, there's no contract, so you can cancel any time. Get endless social media plus a whopping 12 gig for just £10 a month. What? Don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. Get your SIM today at voxy.co.uk. Voxy. Stay connected, stay endless. Offer ends 25th of June. Endless social requires 30 days rolling plan, some general data and does not include voice and video calls. 25 gigabytes roaming, fair use and terms apply.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games and big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was, but he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We begin with job cuts in the telecommunications industry. AT&T plans to cut more than 3,400 technician and clerical jobs in the U.S. over the next few weeks. This according to the Communications Workers of America, which says the company has informed the union of the coming cuts. And T-Mobile Vice President Jim Kirby has told hundreds of Sprint employees that their services are no longer needed. It is an up day on Wall Street today with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing stocks higher for a third day as optimism over a recovering U.S. economy overrides concerns that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations that range from Texas to China. This morning we got a retail sales report that came in better than expected. S&P off session highs, up now by 44 points, up 1.4%. The Dow is up 402, up 1.6%. NASDAQ up 121, up by 1.2%. 10-year down 9/30 seconds with a yield of 0.74%. Gold now little changed, up just 6 cents the ounce at $17.25. 2% jump for crude. West Texas Intermediate up 2.1% now, $37.89 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, let's talk about an aspect of the coronavirus crisis that we actually haven't spent as much time on of late. So I'm excited we get to talk about this story. It concerns antibody tests. And the headline in the story that will be in the upcoming edition of Bloomberg Business Week says, antibody tests are everywhere now and confusing everyone. Kristen Brown is a healthcare reporter for Bloomberg. She wrote it. She joins us on the phone from California. Joel Weber, the editor of Bloomberg Business Week, he's with us from Brooklyn. So, Joel, help us understand how you got to this story and why it's important.
A couple of weeks ago, I called Kristen and said, I'm basically thinking about doing an antibody test for myself. What do I need to know? And she was basically like, kind of don't bother because nobody understands anything about what the results are. I'm being a little facetious here, but I think the main thing that Kristen and I kicked around on that call and that she writes about is that really we don't know what these antibody tests and the outcomes really mean yet. And that is adding just a whole level of confusion to the coronavirus conversation because you might have had it and tested positive for it, but this antibody thing, we don't really understand if that actually makes it shows you any immunity to the virus at all. Kristen, what did you learn while you were reporting this?
Yeah, so interestingly, I should disclose, I actually did have an antibody test myself because I was curious, even though I know they're worthless. And I think that that's the really interesting thing is even if you're up on the science and you understand that we know that antibodies probably confer some immunity, but we don't know how much immunity. So it means that the test really isn't going to change anything about your life, right? You still have to be careful. But there's this desire to have this feeling that maybe you have some protection against this virus. And I think there's this really interesting thing going on where testing companies, doctors' offices are now sort of preying on that desire, that hope we all have. Several of our Bloomberg colleagues forwarded to me emails they got or text messages they got from their own doctor's office saying, book an antibody test today. We've got them. Even though the science says and good medicine says there's no reason for an individual to get this test because the test isn't going to change anything about your behavior.
Kristen, I feel like with everything with COVID-19, it's not easy, it's not simple. And that includes, these tests. And what's tough is there's so many out there. It feels like everywhere you look, there's an antibody test. What's interesting is you talk about even in your story how people are starting to vet antibody tests, I guess, to figure out which ones maybe perhaps are more reliable. But, I felt like this was going to be the holy grail to some extent, in addition to a vaccine, to being able to reopen safely. And now what we're hearing is maybe that's not the case.
I should say that it's not that the tests are completely worthless, right? There are some scenarios in which these tests can be very useful. And so it is important that test manufacturers have very good, highly sensitive, highly specific tests. Those cases include public health surveys when we're testing swaths of the population to try and understand, okay, how many people have really had the virus in this community? How many people are asymptomatic? It also includes occupations like healthcare workers or, even people at grocery stores where those people have to be performing their jobs and interacting with a lot of people. And maybe it makes sense to have the people dealing with people who are sick with COVID to be people who have antibodies already. Because even if we don't 100% know how much immunity they confer, at least we're making a more educated guess about who is safer to be on the front lines there. So there definitely is some value in these tests, just, probably not to you or me.
And let's bring in the thought of the FDA in all of this, right? Because these tests, what kind of regulations are around for them right now? Right.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting thing. The FDA in March, when these tests started coming on the market, were like, hey, we want you guys to get the test out there as soon as possible. Basically, just go ahead and do it. We're not going to intervene. And what happened, and the FDA has said this, is that they had a bunch of bad actors. They had people marketing tests that they said were FDA approved when they're not. They had people marketing tests that performed really poorly, marketing those really aggressively. And so then last month, the FDA had to step in and sort of walk back their earlier position and say, okay, if you're an antibody test maker, you need to apply to us for an emergency use authorization, which is the same authorization that the diagnostic test makers have to get. So, but that still hasn't solved the problem, because now we still have all of these tests on the market that are, in the pipeline for approval, but haven't gotten approval yet and are still on the market.
Right, and as you said, there's about 200 of them, with 18 just receiving formal emergency user authorization. It's an interesting story and just another smart story and a reminder of how complex this all is. Kristen Brown, thank you so much. Bloomberg News healthcare reporter, joining us on the phone from Oakland, California. And of course, our thanks to Jill Weber, editor of Bloomberg Business Week, on the phone from Brooklyn.
Yeah, and you can check that story out. It's on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg terminal already, and you can see it in print later this week in the upcoming edition of Bloomberg Business Week.
We talked about, this was going to be so important and so helpful.
And I have to say, I talk to people anecdotally, and they say it's a mess as well. So we'll see. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. We could hardly wait to get back to the stores last month as the economy began to reopen. The government says retail sales soared nearly 18% in May, the most in data going back to 1992, and more than double expectations. The data lit a fire under stocks, and while worries about a second wave of coronavirus infections held the market back a bit, prices remain sharply higher. The Dow Industrials are up 457, the S&P 500 up 50, the Nasdaq up 135. Fed Chair Jay Powell says the economy may be entering a period of significant gains in employment, but he tells the Senate panel they will leave the labor market well short of its pre-pandemic levels. He says the path to recovery remains uncertain. AT&T is cutting its fleet of retail stores as it looks to reduce costs and pay down debt. It says the COVID-19 pandemic gave it a head start. AT&T has about 2,200 company-owned stores. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. The best of Bloomberg Business.
At Harford's, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone.
Happy birthday!
From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favorite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, you must now wear a face covering at all times, avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1998, the Detroit Red Wings win back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, defeating the debutant finalist Washington Capitals 4-1 for a 4-0 series sweep.
9 seconds, they count them down. The Detroit Red Wings have won the Stanley Cup 1998.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn. To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. CDC says there are still precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Wash hands often for 20 seconds and encourage others to do the same. Use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol if no soap or water is available. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Coming up, we alluded to it at the top of the show. Dave Wilson, going to talk a little bit about that long bull market. Remember that?
Remember that? Remember when? Once upon a time.
We used to say, I wonder what could stop this bull market. Yeah, we got the answer to that.
That's called COVID-19. All right, let's get back to your top business stories and another check on that trading day. Here is once again Charlie.
Thank you very much, Carol Master. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Been a very interesting day. On the one hand, we got that better than expected retail sales data this morning. On the other hand, rising coronavirus cases in Texas and China. Bottom line, it is an up day with the S&P up 53 now, up 1.7%. S&P rallying the most in more than a week. The Dow up 464 points, up 1.8%. NASDAQ up now by 149 points. That is a gain of just about 1.5%. 10-year yield 0.74%. Gold up 94 cents the ounce at $17.26, up by less than 0.1%. Little change there. West Texas Intermediate crude oil up 2.6%, $38.10 a barrel on WTI. Oracle will be reporting after the closing bell. Shares up by 2.4%. McDonald's U.S. sales recovering much of their lost ground in May after a 19% slump in April. Evidence that consumers tired of home cooking are eager to get back in the drive-through lane. McDonald's up now by 0.2%. Nvidia and Intel both downgraded to equal weight from overweight at Morgan Stanley. Intel and Nvidia both based in Santa Clara, California. Intel shares up 0.1%. Nvidia down by almost 2%. It is 3:33 on Wall Street. Time now for the Small Business Report. And here's John Tucker.
Before the pandemic struck, Gigi Kandi made a living as a driving instructor. Her hybrid driving school had to shut down March 21st. And 3 months later, she's facing the prospect of restarting her school under social distancing guidelines that could severely limit how much business she can conduct. Gigi is with us now. Tell us what you're up against here.
The 5-hour class, we have to do it in the classroom. We cannot do it online. So instead of putting 15 chairs in my classroom, now it's 8 students only we can accommodate.
If you're limited to only 8 students in the classroom, can you really make much money and cover your overhead by doing that?
We can only make money if I have 10 lessons a day in one car. But otherwise, if it's only 4 lessons a day, we don't really make money. That makes me really scared. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what will happen about my business. But what I know, I'm pretty sure that we will have a lot of clients because right now, even though I'm home, I have a lot of calls from the clients, and they really want to drive because they said they don't want to take the train, they don't want to take the bus.
Okay, so demand is high, but social distancing guidelines will inherently cap the number of students you can let through the door. Gigi Kandi, owner of Hybrid Driving School. I'm John Tucker. That is your Bloomberg Small Business Report for today.
And we thank you, John. The owner of Blue, China's biggest LGBTQ dating app, has filed for a U.S. initial public offering. Recapping, S&P up 59, up 1.9%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Hi. Thank you, Charlie.
Oh.
This is Bloomberg.
If I had ever been in before, I would probably know just what to do. Don't you?
I got lost in the Small Business Report there, but
you know, when it's a name like Gigi, you know, you get
gotta
lost.
Listen. You get lost. You get lost. Driving school. I was thinking about learning to drive. So Dave Wilson here with your chart of the day. Is that a little Crosby, Stills and Nash?
We've been playing a lot of that at home. Yes, CSNY.
CSNY.
Yeah.
You got it.
Talk to us.
Deja vu. I mean, it's the headline on the chart, seeing deja vu. That's what we're talking about here. You know, I've seen a few analysts and strategists kind of look at what's happened over the past 2.5 months with stocks rallying from their March lows and thinking, you know, we've seen this movie before. Back in 2009, when that 11-year bull market we were talking about earlier was just getting started. And one of those who sort of made the connection is Mike Wilson. He's the chief U.S. equity strategist at Morgan Stanley, who's turned, you know, kind of optimistic about stocks after having been rather pessimistic just a few months ago. And so he had a few charts in his latest report that tried to link where stocks are now to where they were 11 years ago. He looked at both the S&P 500 and the Russell 2000 indexes. You know, not only the value of those indicators in relative terms, but also just the breadth of the gains. And the way that he established that is to look at the percentage of companies in the indexes that were above their 200-day moving averages. It's sort of a way to gauge price trends, which stocks are showing some strength by being above that particular level. And so that's what the chart does. It looks at the S&P 500, the percentage of stocks above the 200-day moving average. And when you run the numbers, you find out that really going back to March, they've tracked each other pretty closely, this year as opposed to 11 years ago. And in fact, if you do sort of a daily comparison, the gap between the percentages has averaged a little bit more than 6 points, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily expect them to move together like in lockstep. So this is a pretty close relationship. It's kind of broken down a bit the last couple days. Nonetheless, I mean, the general direction would suggest that what we're seeing now is very similar to what we saw as a bull market was getting underway. So it's a reason for optimism, at least to these strategists, Mike Wilson specifically, if nothing else. And if you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart, the explanation that goes with it, and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
Does it feel like a new bull market to you, Dave Wilson? You've seen several.
Well, it's kind of a hard thing to get your head around because if you go back to 2009, I mean, bear in mind, you had like close to a year and a half of declines before that. S&P 500 falling close to 50%. So, it's kind of hard to get a feel this time around because, the drop lasted 6 weeks. And that's really the challenge for investors at this point.
Yeah.
Did we, in fact, even though we crossed that 20% threshold that people tend to focus on, did we really get into a bull market? Or is this a particularly severe bump in an existing bull market? I mean, that's, the challenge that people have to kind of work through here.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dave Wilson, we appreciate it. Good historical context, something to think about. As always, we'll talk to you in about 20 minutes for your stock of the day after we get through this trading day. Only got about 21 minutes to go.
Yeah, what an interesting, Jason Kelly. What an interesting day. I mean, just so much stuff going on. And, here we are. We've been down and we are, just off our highs this session. So it looks like we're going to hold on to those gains. All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Back on over to Nancy Lyons in our 99.1 Newsroom. Hey, Nance.
Hey, Carol. The chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, Jerome Powell, is predicting an uneven recovery from the pandemic. As Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports, Powell gave his assessment in his semi-annual economic report to Congress.
Powell said reopening businesses this summer should spark a further boost to employment and consumer spending.
We would expect to see large numbers of people coming back to work during this bounce back. That will leave us well short of full employment. And the reason for that is just that there are parts that will struggle to return to activity because they involve getting people together closely in large groups.
Powell advocated further measures to keep small businesses afloat, extend help to the unemployed, and avert layoffs by state and local governments. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
President Trump is taking his first steps to address growing national outcry over police brutality by signing an executive order called Safe Policing for Safe Communities.
Choke calls will be banned, except if an officer's life is at risk. And I will say we've dealt with all of the various departments, and everybody said, it's time. We have to do it.
Trump's order would give federal grants to police departments that seek independent credentialing, certifying they meet high standards or carry out training in the use of force. Florida is seeing coronavirus cases rise to the highest level yet. Deaths are up nearly 2%, cases up nearly 4% in just one day. New cases have now exceeded 1,000 a day in 13 of the last 14 days. Governor Ron DeSantis has attributed the uptick to isolated outbreaks in agriculture communities and increased testing. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education
and to finish what I started to get my diploma.
Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
COVID-19. On days when it...
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not book an MOT to get you safely back on the road? With over 600,000 carried out every year at 350 garages, you can always count on our experts. And get back to visiting those you've missed the most.
Hi, Mum.
From a safe distance, of course. From MOTs to battery replacements and tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. CDC says there are still precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Wash hands, often, for 20 seconds, and encourage others to do the same. Use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol, if no soap or water is available. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn. Who says only the experts get to do the talking? On the Scuttle Puck NHL Hockey Podcast, irreverent outsiders Mike Bond and Dale Horde give their untrained opinions on all things hockey from the fans' perspective.
I don't know how you get those guys out of there. And Crosby, as great as he's been, it's just such a different era, so it's tough with the... he didn't have the crazy number of points that Orr, Lemieux, and Gretzky did.
Search Scuttle Puck on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Lots of concerns for investors on this Tuesday. Fed Chair Jay Powell saying the U.S. economy may be bottoming out. Also, we've got coronavirus cases worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. But we are looking at an up day here. Again, 13 minutes to go ahead of the close, with the S&P now up by 50 points. That is a gain of about 1.7%. S&P rallying the most in more than a week. The Dow's up 450 points now, up 1.7%. And NASDAQ up another 145 points, up 1.5%. Year to date, NASDAQ is up by 10%. 10 years down 6/32 with a yield of 0.74%. Gold up 0.1% right now, $17.26 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.5%, $38.05 a barrel. Recapping, S&P up 50, up 1.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the Drive to the Close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed. Just about 11 minutes left to go in today's trading session. And as you know, we've been bouncing around, but we're just a little bit off our highs. But nonetheless, we've got more than 1% rallies on each of those major equity averages. Let's talk about the close with Henley Smith, Senior Vice President and Senior Relationship Manager at New York-based Stonecastle Cash Management. They've got $22 billion in FDIC-insured institutional cash deposits under advisory. And he joins us once again on the phone from Connecticut. Henley, nice to have you back with Jason.
And it's great to hear. It's great to hear that busy traffic report out of New York. So maybe things are ultimately getting back to normal.
I don't know about that. It's slow going, certainly in New York. Tell me, what are you seeing in terms of activity picking up, and maybe what it tells you about, where the financial markets go from here?
Well, as we've talked about before, we've kind of on the leading edge of what was gone on in the last 10 weeks as investors come into a fully insured cash management situation. They want to be in liquidity and insured principal. So we were the benefactors of that. So we've seen a lot of institutional clients.
You saw a rush into that? You definitely did see a big rush into that.
Oh, yeah. We were up over the last couple of weeks, well over $5 billion in new assets that came in because people wanted to protect interest, principal, and they wanted liquidity. So we were the benefactors of that. And we continue to see that. So I think that the allocation to cash, even at these low interest rates, will continue to grow both on the institutional level as well as the individual level. And I think that's kind of the normal now. We saw that coming out of 2008-9, and I think that you're going to see that is going to be with us now as people build, maintain, and control rainy day reserves for what might be happening next.
Well, that whole notion of a rainy day reserve, I mean, I would imagine that becomes a little more popular in a time like this now, right, Henley?
Oh, absolutely. And you would think that, with these ultra low interest rates, people would be kind of running for the hills. And of course, you're seeing, obviously, stock market prices move up and down, but for the most part, moving up. But yeah, we've seen that on the institutional level. And also on the high net worth individual savings rates are up. That's because, of course, there might be some stimulus checks there. But we see in the family office market in particular, and we've talked about this before, where cash as a part of their total portfolio is anywhere from 15 to 20% now.
Are you worried about some of the turmoil that we've seen in the past in those money market funds?
Well, again, I think that it just kind of exposes some of the concerns that we've had up to this point in these collective investments. So I think the real greatest safety can control can be seen through direct ownership of cash assets. I know that's tough on the retail side, but for institutions, you've seen more of it. They've been moving out of these collective money market funds because in many ways they are impacted by what their neighbor does, and they don't want to do that. So direct ownership continues to be the way that people are going, and that's what we've seen.
So I got to ask you a little bit of a turn here, sort of back to where we started a little bit, Henley. What's it like in Connecticut? What are you seeing? Because, we're trying to get this picture of what's going on across the country. And even with the tri-state area, Carol and I are comparing notes. She's just outside of New York City. I'm in the Westchester suburbs, and our lives are very different. I wonder what you're seeing.
Yeah, just the same as you. I mean, I think more people are getting out a little bit more. They're being courteous and kind, and they're wearing masks in public areas. I'm in an office building here in Connecticut, in Newtown, Connecticut, and people are starting to come back a little bit. But, the offices have to change. A lot of, as you know, Wall Street is a lot of open trading desks, and that's going to have to change a little bit. So, slowly, restaurants are coming back. People are eating under tents in parking lots, which is great to see. But, slowly but surely, I think the tone is changing to the positive, and it's great to see.
Okay, and so when you see some of the headlines like a spike in Florida or Texas or China, shutting down schools in Beijing because of a new market-related, open or food market-related, round of the virus, that doesn't concern you?
Well, certainly it does. But I think, again, forewarned is forearmed. We know a little bit more about it now. Yeah. We know to be expected now. So, 10 weeks ago, it kind of came out of nowhere to everybody. So now I think everyone's, their awareness is much more heightened. And I think with that realization, I think, this is a manageable thing.
Henley, when do you start to think about the elections, the November elections? We get to a point where that becomes a major focal point of our market conversations and investment conversations, because we know that can certainly, change what the outlook is. Is it too soon? Do you think about it?
No, I think people are thinking about it all the time. I think that's one of the underlying things that's been happening in this kind of, chaotic world that we now live in, which we've kind of been stumbling into. We talked about this before, about baby black swans that keep happening and happening and happening. We've talked about that before. So I think the trick of this particular market cycle is that we've had these political undertones in it, and that's just going to only supercharge what we're doing. So as we get closer to November, I think the volatility we can count on just continuing to increase. So we're just trading from headline to headline to headline.
Yeah, it's a really interesting time, to say the least. Henley, really nice to catch up with you. Always a pleasure to get your perspective on things, and it's a
unique one too.
Yeah, it totally is. All right, Henley Smith, Senior. Go ahead, Henley.
No, I just said, cash is kind of the leading thing, and it's an asset class that is getting on more and more important as we go along.
Yeah, for sure.
There are several times this year I wish I was more aggressively in cash. Just going to say.
True. All right, Henley, good to hear your voice. Henley Smith, Senior Relationship Manager at Stone Castle Cash Management, joining us on the phone from Connecticut. I like it, when we're able to talk to people at their offices. That's sort of a nice sign. Clearly, we're not talking to a lot of people in skyscrapers in Manhattan, although, some of our colleagues are back there in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker studio here and again.
I've been there the whole time. Yeah, a lot of
Michael
our colleagues.
McKee,
but you're right.
And others, and our team, obviously.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It's hard to get your head around this idea that kind of where we are in different states and in different localities in the cycle. That part of the reason that things feel a little bit better around here is because I dare say our leadership, our state leadership and our local leadership, really locked it down.
Yeah. Are you messing with my Governor Murphy?
No. I'm saying versus Texas or Florida.
Yes. In other parts of the country.
I think it's just a huge, huge difference.
Yeah.
I would never mess with Murphy. I'm not a knucklehead.
You're not a knucklehead. All right, stick around, everyone. 3.5 minutes left in today's trading session. We'll count you down to the closing bell right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's Tune In Sports on this day. On this day in 1998, the Detroit Red Wings win back-to-back Stanley Cup titles, defeating the debutant finalist Washington Capitals 4-1 for a 4-0 series sweep.
9 seconds, they count them down. The Detroit Red Wings have won the Stanley Cup 1998.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn. Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games and big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was, but he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Looking to freshen up your listening on TuneIn? Head to the homepage to discover something new. There you'll see custom recommendations based on your listening habits, along with new episodes of shows you've enjoyed in the past. Uncover your next audio obsession on the homepage.
Today at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We begin with this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service. U.S. virus cases up 1%. That number in line with the past week's average. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. Stocks up for a third day as optimism over a recovering U.S. economy overrode concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. Treasury yields rose. The dollar strengthened. S&P up the most in more than a week. Energy, healthcare, and materials leading all 11 industry sectors higher. S&P up 58 points at the close. That was a gain of 1.9%. The Dow up 526, up by 2%. NASDAQ up 170. That was a gain of 1.75%. So yes, an up day. Stocks so well off session highs. 10-year down 8/32 with a yield of 0.74%. Gold up 0.1%. 17.27 the ounce. Sam West Texas Intermediate crude oil now up 2.8%. 38.18 a barrel. So an up day on Wall Street. Henley Smith is senior relationship manager at Stone Castle Cash Management. A moment ago, right here on Bloomberg Business Week, he told us you can't ignore the election.
The trick of this particular market cycle is that we've had these political undertones in it, and that's just going to only supercharge what we're doing. So as we get closer to November, I think the volatility we can count on just continuing to increase. So we're just trading from headline to headline to headline.
Let's tell Bloomberg IAG, the parent of British Airways, is reviewing its strategy to help reposition the group as it emerges from the coronavirus pandemic. U.S. airline shares, for the most part, did move higher today. Among the big four, UAL up 3.1%, American up by 2%, Delta up 2.8%, Southwest up by 0.6%. So again, recapping the Dow, the S&P and NASDAQ all advanced. S&P up 58. That was a gain of 1.9%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Your next move will be your last.
Nobody move a muscle.
Damn, Shippy, you got some moves.
And I'm moving from town to town.
Time is money. Let's go. Come on, move it.
Shake it up. Shake it up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed, everyone. Time to take a look at some of the stocks on the move. The Tuesday session, as we mentioned, bouncing around a little bit. We were pretty much up all day, but we certainly did trade on headlines. We know in those virus cases, the numbers, the spike in a couple of states crossed. We did see equities pull back a little bit. Jason, at one point, we were up 847 points on the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So we finished with a gain of, roughly half that or so. Yeah. So we did pare back some of those earlier losses. So what did it mean, though, for the S&P 500? Still pretty broad-based in terms of the buying. 470 names in the index were higher today. 35 were lower. Your outperformers in terms of major industry groups, that included energy names up more than 2%. Healthcare was up 2%. Information technology up 1.8%. Bottom of the pack, but still with a slight gain, were utilities. They were up about 0.1%.
Yeah, it is amazing, though. I mean, just, thinking about the market swings and, what we look at. And, it used to be this is a little bit of inside baseball, but, back in the day, in the pre-COVID times, if we saw a 2% move in the market, we would completely rethink our show.
Right.
We would essentially get, guidance from our colleagues and our bosses, candidly, of like, all right, we are all over the markets. Like, clear the decks. We're only doing markets. And now we're like, 2% gain.
Well, I do feel like, there's those things where you're like, okay, there were special conditions. And I do think this whole virus is going to be like a section in a book or a couple of pages that says, things were different.
Yeah.
I do want to mention Oracle because it's crossing the Bloomberg here. Oracle fourth quarter adjusted revenue. It's a slight miss, $10.44 billion versus the estimate of $10.72 billion. Fourth quarter adjusted EPS was $1.20 versus, that's actually a nickel better than what Wall Street was forecasting. The company saying strong performances in cloud infrastructure, cloud apps, and said some customers in hardest hit industries postponed their buys. And that's not surprising that maybe people putting off some of their spending. Do you have a look at the trade in the after hours?
Yes, it is down about 2%. Okay. Oracle is. So we're going to catch up on Oracle's numbers in just a little bit, less than half an hour, with Anurag Rana from our Bloomberg intelligence team. Meanwhile, if you look at what's moving in the S&P, just to talk about a couple specific names, some were essentially kind of trend trades, and that was the case with the losers on the board. Fox, Viacom, and Discovery, those were your worst performers after the CEO of Discovery, David Zaslav, basically said ad spending down. So all the big cable companies got hit there. So that was sort of a sector trade. You had some.
It's interesting. We knew that. Maybe they were, people were expecting to start to see some good news. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think everybody is very optimistic right now. And so maybe if someone's not, validating that optimism, I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, let's be honest, I feel like quarantine and lockdown has been better for streaming services than it has for cable. We've seen a lot of people, and maybe I'm just going on my own behavior, but, oftentimes I'll just pop right onto streaming and skip cable altogether.
Right. And there's a lot more choices, it feels like, no doubt about it. Hey, let's mention Eli Lilly, your number one gainer in the S&P 500. Ticker is LLY. jumping the most since 2008 after a positive study for its drug combination in patients with a type of breast cancer was heralded by analysts as a surprising and transformational event for the company. So,
well, and it's interesting because Pfizer
had a failure, right?
Had a miss earlier. So basically, it's not just, oh, you're doing well, it's you're doing better than somebody else. So it's like a double win in many ways, just through the eyes of investors.
It's always perspective, right?
It's always perspective. It's always the context. All right, let's take a quick look at volatility. The VIX down a touch, about 1%, closing at 34.05. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door. It's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson, our Bloomberg Stocks columnist and editor, back with his stock of the day, and the ticker is SITM. What do you got, Dave?
That's SciTime, Carol. It's a maker of micro-electromechanical system devices. That's MEMS for short. The components are made of silicon, just like semiconductors. They keep electronic equipment running in the proper sequence and track the time, among other tasks. Now, SciTime was founded in 2004 by former employees of German auto parts maker Robert Bosch, which was an early backer. The company was sold in 2014 to a Japanese chip maker called Megachips, which took it public last November. And yes, that ticker, SITM. SciTime rose 43% on the first day of trading and has built on the gains since then. The stock even rose last week when the company sold 112 million of shares for itself and for Megachips. SciTime set a record today after analysts raised 12-month share price estimates. Roth Capital had the highest call, $50, after lifting its forecast by 25%. Raymond James set a target of $42. That was up 68%. And Needham was at $40 after lifting its estimate by 48%. Now, SciTime, as it happened, got above Needham's projection and also was above Raymond James during the day. I mean, the shares got as high as $42.84. They closed at $41.50 for a gain of 5.8%.
Your voice went up a little bit there, Dave.
I'm just excited.
Are you just excited?
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting sort of company, the sort of thing you don't think about. You know, they used to make these MEMS devices out of quartz, but they found out silicon was better, more reliable, worked better in bad conditions, you name it. So, you know, you learn something new every day.
There you
Which
go.
is why we love you. Stock's off and running. It's up roughly 63% this year. So it's had quite a bounce.
Yeah, in a tough year. Weird year, for
very
sure.
cool.
All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Have a nice evening. We'll catch up with you tomorrow for your market insights, your chart, and stock of the day. Yes, Carol?
Coming up, we've got one of the most read stories on the Bloomberg, and then we're going to get into Oracle earnings.
We are indeed. But before we get to that, let's head out to San Francisco. Ed Baxter is there. He has World and National Headlines. Hello, Ed.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Carol. President Donald Trump, as you know, has signed an executive order that sets up federal grants, he says, to help train forces in de-escalation tactics.
We will provide more resources for co-responders, such as social workers who can help officers manage these complex encounters.
And he does say it would ban chokeholds unless the officer thinks his or her life is in danger. He says there are some officers that need to go.
Bad police officers, and you have them. They're very tiny. I use the word tiny. It's a very small percentage.
The order seeks to track police officers' conduct for other departments, and Senator Kamala Harris, not impressed.
There is nothing about what the president announced today that would hold police officers who break the rules and break the law accountable.
In New York, Mayor Bill de Blasio says the department is getting rid of plainclothes detectives and wants to reroute some funding to youth groups. Beijing, on the virus front, has shut its schools to stem virus spread there. And with a buzz today over using an anti-inflammatory to help people, Dr. William Hazeltine, Harvard researcher on Bloomberg Television, says there are some encouraging messages.
At the beginning of the epidemic, you had about a 90 to 80% chance of dying, 80 to 90% chance of dying. Today, you have an 80% chance of living. It's a big advance.
Yeah, which of course is very good news. And he says there are 4 things which include the anti-inflammatory which have helped. In fact, after some reopenings, Florida has new cases rising and Texas hospitalizations surging as well. I'm Ed Baxter in San Francisco.
Working from home, take a little more time for breakfast. Tom Keene.
How will this pandemic change your NASDAQ?
Jonathan Farrow.
When you look at that sector, some of these companies won't exist, will they?
And Lisa Abramowitz.
They've only continued to increase the delinquencies and defaults.
Crunch data topped with fresh world news. Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. And now, watch us on Bloomberg Television.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision-makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the Terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
How long? How much? How many?
At Harford's, we're here to get you where you want to be. We fit car tyres for over 500,000 customers every year. We could fit yours at one of over 350 garages, or even on your driveway with our mobile experts, which means you can safely hit the road again and surprise that special someone. Happy birthday! From tyre fittings to MOTs, there really is no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed, retrieve data fast. Scalability, grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity, easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
At Asda, we've provided 3,500 care homes with priority access to delivery slots, and priority shopping hours are open to our care workers. We're also donating 250,000 face masks to care homes. Asda, we're all in this together. Please show ID for priority shopping. Check asda.com for times.
This is Mike Golick Jr. from ESPN's Golick and Wingo. Every morning, Wingo, Dad, and I sit down and discuss all the news, drama, and highlights spinning the sports world that day. And with TuneIn, you can hear us whenever and wherever you go. Just search Golick and Wingo to start listening today.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games and big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was, but he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Oracle out with earnings after the bell. Shares now lower by 4.4% after that report. Fourth quarter adjusted revenue, $10.44 billion. Estimates $10.72 billion. Oracle does say some customers in the hardest hit industries postpone buys. We'll have more on Oracle's earnings and its outlook with our Anurag Rana coming up in just about 15 minutes right here on Bloomberg Business Week. It was an update on Wall Street today with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing, stocks higher for a third day. Optimism over a recovering U.S. economy is evidenced by that surprise retail sales report this morning. Overrode concern that coronavirus cases are worsening in locations ranging from Texas to China. S&P up today by 1.9%. The S&P picking up 58 points. The Dow up 526, up by 2%. NASDAQ up 169, up by 1.75%. 10-year down 8/32 with a yield of 0.74%. Gold up 0.1%, 17.26 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.7%, 38.13 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Really appreciate that update. Now, Jason, one of the most read stories, I know you saw this on the Bloomberg today, is about how for Black CEOs in the world of technology, humiliation is a part of doing business. This certainly caught our attention. Here with that story is Sarah McBride. She's venture capital reporter at Bloomberg News, and she joins us on the phone in San Francisco. Sarah, good to have you here with us. Tell us what's going on.
Well, it's just a sad state of affairs, another way where Silicon Valley is disappointing. This time when it comes to African American founders. With my colleague Priya Anand, reported a story where it was just jaw-dropping, the number of anecdotes we heard from Black founders and how they've just been subtly and not so subtly mistreated every step of the way in ways that white founders never have to think about.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting, Sarah, because what you guys do a really nice job of in this story, and I have to say, it's one of those stories that you have to read it, and as you're reading it, it's actually hard to read, and in some cases, it's horrifying in a lot of cases, and sort of embarrassing in a lot of ways to think about. Yeah. Because it is anecdotal through your story, but also appears to be systemic. This is not sort of these one-off things that are happening. I mean, this is constantly happening.
Right. In fact, one founder who I talked to, who isn't in the story, basically told me she was insulted that it's so well documented, the racism in Silicon Valley. She asked me, why do I even still have to talk to you to explain how racist Silicon Valley is? Can't we move beyond the anecdotes? And the founder that was the lead of the story, Will Hayes, is somebody I met at a dinner maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and his story just stuck with me all those years. And when this moment came, I knew it was the time to approach him and ask if he'd go on the record with it. And he's somebody who's run a company, Lucid Works, for many years and has raised many venture rounds for the company. And one of his key aids is for many years was his white marketing head. And whenever they went to a meeting together, very often the investor would just assume his marketing head was the CEO and reach out their hand to him first and shake the wrong guy's hand and say, "Hi, Will."
Yeah.
And they said it was horrifying, but it also became funny when it happened. You know, they said dozens and dozens of times over the years. I spoke to both of them in the end. And they said that if that happened, if a meeting got off on that foot, there was just no recovery. And they knew they would never raise money from that venture firm because the VC would realize the mistake and just be so mortified that they would want to end the meeting as quickly as possible. And there was never a check written from any of those firms. Will told me about one time he raised a $100 million round last year where he was sitting in a meeting. The investor had made that mistake, and Will was 5 or 10 minutes into his presentation, and the investor interrupted and said, "You know, I just want to say again how very sorry I am that I made that mistake," which told Will that the investor had heard nothing for the previous 10 minutes. He'd just been so embarrassed. It's just an unpleasant situation when you're forced to deal with your own racism, and certainly for the founder, not conducive to raising any money.
Yeah, and we've been trying to talk to some of the venture capitalists that we have about some of this, and I know we need to go further on this. You know, you throw some stats, Sarah, in your story, you say, you know, you remind us 13% of the U.S. population is black, yet from the infancy of the internet back in 1990 to the unicorn era of 2016, 0.4% of people who receive venture capital were black. Why is it we think of Silicon Valley as being evolved and forward-looking and liberal and open, and yet not so much? Why is that? Why is it persisted?
Silicon Valley has the best PR in the world. It is amazing. So because they backed some cool tech companies, then people kind of assume that Silicon Valley is kind of cool and forward-looking in all ways, and it's just not true. There are a few black VCs, very few. In the story, my colleague Priya had talked to a VC who told her that at the firm, he was always asked to justify why he was advocating for black founders. And he finally said, "Look, I'm just doing it like you might advocate for someone who went to the same college as you did, like Stanford or Harvard." One of the entrepreneurs I talked to in the story told me that a white VC had called him up and said, "You know, I went back and looked at the records of every time a black founder has pitched me, and I realized I always found some excuse that I thought was legitimate at the time to not back that person. Oh, they don't have a technical degree. Oh, they don't have enough experience." And I realized, you know, maybe individually each justification seemed right, but collectively there is something very wrong with that.
Well, it's a really, really important piece of reporting, and we appreciate you sharing it with us. It is among the most read stories rightly on the Bloomberg and on Bloomberg.com, and we will put it out via Twitter as well. Sarah McBride, VC reporter for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone from San Francisco. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A record jump in May retail sales outweighed a jump in coronavirus cases in the U.S. and China, so we saw gains of 1 3/4 to 2% across the averages. The Dow up 527, the Nasdaq 170, the S&P 58. The jump in retail sales in May, 17.7%, was the largest on record. Fed Chair Jay Powell says Congress may need to spend more money for a full economic recovery. However, the Trump administration says it's getting $1 trillion infrastructure measure ready. Some medical data helped brighten Wall Street's mood, too. A British study indicates a generic steroid that is low cost and has been on the market for decades has been helpful in treating severe COVID cases. The FCC is unhappy with T-Mobile's nationwide service outage yesterday for hours. It says it will investigate. T-Mobile says it was a router problem, but the FCC has fined telecoms in the past, including T-Mobile itself, for network outages. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
With COVID-19, so much is unknown.
Is this the worst you've seen?
But we are committed to getting you every piece of information we can as soon as we can.
Tell us about this first big win you have. What is it, 24 million N95 masks?
Fewer unknowns.
Who's winning here? Where is the pressure right now?
That's our goal.
What worries you the most? The time it's going to take for a vaccine?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Bloomberg and Eden Vance are...
At Halfords, we're here to get you where you want to be. Why not book an MOT to get you safely back on the road? With over 600,000 carried out every year at 350 garages, you can always count on our experts. And get back to visiting those you've missed the most.
Hi, Mom.
From a safe distance, of course. From MOTs to battery replacements and tyre fittings, there's no job too big or too small. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Listen. That's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, you must now wear a face covering at all times, avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Ready for some straight talk on what's happening in the MLB? On the Barstool Sports Podcast starting 9, Dallas Braden and Jared Carrabis cut through the BS to break down the league the way they really see it.
Yeah, we're continuing our little mini-series of college baseball coaches in addition to bringing you major league players from throughout the league. If you've been listening to Starting 9 for some time now, you know that we've had a big leaguer on every single episode for probably 2 years now.
Search Starting 9 on TuneIn to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Casting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, we're going to dig into Oracle.
Were you having a mad about you moment?
We were. Where's your mug?
It's here.
Yeah, there you go.
It's here. I'm waiting for Paul to get the Emmy.
I know. It's all going to happen.
And then we're going to bring him back in, and I'm going to hold his Emmy, and he's going to hold my mug.
Yeah. Before we do that, we're going to talk about Oracle earnings.
Yes.
That's coming up next. And then we're going to catch up with the CEO of Incredible Health. Looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. All right. First up, though, let's get back to your top business stories. Here is, once again, Charlie Pellet.
Hi, thank you very much. We've got Oracle down by about 4%. Our Anurag Rana will have a lot more to say about Oracle coming up in just a moment, specifically the earnings report, also the outlook. But let me give you some of the highlights. It did report sales that fell short of analyst estimates, signaling that the coronavirus pandemic and recession have spurred a pullback in corporate spending on information technology. Revenue declined to by about 6.3% to $10.4 billion in the period ending May 31st. Again, shares of Oracle after hours down now by about 4%. Fed Chair Jay Powell says the U.S. economy may be entering a period of significant improvements in employment, but one that will leave the labor market, quote, well short of the robust levels seen just before the coronavirus pandemic. Consumers, meanwhile, are venturing out after sheltering from the pandemic. Retail sales posted a record gain in May following historic losses in March and April, the number coming in far better than analysts were expecting. Michelle Meyer is head of economics at Bank of America.
May is the first month that you're seeing the bounce. Look at what you're seeing, whether it's the retail sales numbers this morning or the jobs figures or mortgage purchase applications from the housing data, the ISM surveys. It's all inflecting higher, right? Because this is the first month that the economy can actually go back out and engage. And June will feel quite similar.
The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all higher today, with the S&P up 58, up 1.9%, 2% jump for the Dow, up 526 points, NASDAQ up 169, up by 1.75%, 10-year yield 0.74%, gold up 0.1%, 17.26 the ounce, West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.6%, 37.67 a barrel. Sources say Tesla is going to be buying cobalt from Glencore, the world's biggest miner of the metal, as the car maker looks to avoid a future supply squeeze on the key battery metal. Shares of Glencore today did move higher by 0.7%. Tesla down day there, dropping 0.9%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, as Charlie mentioned, Oracle shares are trading off here in the aftermarket after that earnings report. Let's bring in Anurag Rana. Excuse me.
You okay? Anurag Rana is with us. Are you okay? Yeah.
I just got something caught.
I saw.
You could see it happening. Sorry, Anurag.
I just kind of watched. Sorry about that. I don't know what that says. Anurag Rana, we know you're there. He's senior analyst of software and IT services.
I'm going to have a drink of water while you talk about Oracle.
I think, we haven't talked about earnings, and it's like shocking. Like here we have another report. What do we need to know about Oracle? Because we did see the stock moving in the after hours.
Yeah, I think the biggest impact is from a stronger dollar because if you see the headline number is that the sales were down 6%, but if you were to exclude currency, the sales were down 4%, which was generally in line with what what you would expect in this type of a cycle. As expected, support revenue, which is from stuff that they've already sold to clients, was up nicely about 3%, while new license sales. Now, this is one of the most important features for any legacy software company is, how many people are buying your new licenses. That was down about 21%. And that is expected once again because of COVID, people pushing out corporate IT spend.
Yeah. So on the corporate IT piece, Anurag, that's the thing we always care about, right? When it comes to an Oracle and what it may tell us about companies' willingness or unwillingness to spend. How does this jive with what you're hearing across your portfolio of companies that you cover?
I think this is going to be the theme, at least for the second quarter, and I don't think anybody should expect otherwise. But, I think comments on the calls are going to be very important because some of the companies have been saying that, listen, for example, April was bad, but things started, improving a little bit in May in terms of the pipelines, the discussions, salespeople getting re-engaged. So I think that's the kind of comments that are more important right now because we need to know, month by month, has business activity picked up? And, when we heard comments from both Salesforce and Workday, it sounded like, the last few weeks of the quarter, they did see an increase in the pipeline build-up. Now, that does take some time to translate into bookings and then into revenue, but I think those comments are far more important than the backward-looking number of, what really happened in the quarter.
I agree. Anurag, when you look at your space, right, I guess at this point we're waiting to see when companies can talk more about the future and get a handle, on what we're seeing rather than saying we don't know what's happening.
It's going to take some time, largely because, almost every other day you get some new news from, either cases rising in another state or another country. And, that does dampen the you could say the willingness of a CFO to spend money into new software or new technology. Now, that's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is people have to invest more in software just because it makes them highly productive. So if you're going to see people working from home for a very long period of time, you need to invest more.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you, Anurag, is this whole shift that we're seeing. We know people are spending on IT. It's just often IT to, support me sitting here in my daughter's bedroom for 14 weeks broadcasting a radio show. And there are a lot of people like me. I think about it just anecdotally, even in my neighborhood. Who are the real winners in all of that?
So we have put it in three different categories. The first and the most obvious winners are the companies that are seeing, companies that are in collaboration, companies that are in communications. So those, the Zooms and the Teams and Slack, all those companies that allow you to be more productive today. Then the second bucket for us is front office productivity applications such as sales and customer service. I think that's the next area of investment. And the third and the fourth ones would be, upgrading IT infrastructure. And I think that is more of a 2021 story for us rather than, right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a certain amount of triage that went on to get everybody up and running. And now I think folks are trying, I would imagine a lot of IT managers are trying to figure out kind of how long this is going to go on. Are people coming back? How much have we spent? Do we need to spend more? So it's certainly an area to watch. Anurag Rana, Senior Software and IT Services Analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us on the phone from Chicago. Great context as always. Good to hear your voice. Nice to catch up with him and hear what he has to say. Oracle is one of those names that we look to as a bellwether for sure.
They're huge, right? In terms of software cloud. Stock is still down about 4% in the after hours, so we'll watch to see, how that plays out ultimately tomorrow. But getting an idea of kind of where we are. And it is, as you said, Jason, a bellwether. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's get back to World and National News headlines. Back on over to Ed Baxter in our San Francisco studio. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Carol. Hey, Jason. Yes, areas around the globe continue the reopening process. COVID-19 surfaces with larger numbers. Florida, new cases have risen to the highest level since the pandemic began. Texas, hospitalizations have surged. Beijing now has closed all schools to try to contain a resurgence there and raised its response level to 2, the second highest. So with all the good news about survival rates that is coming out, there is concern that this will be with us for a good deal of time. Dr. William Hazeltine, here with Carol and Jason, said the virus is definitely morphing.
And part of that change is to say, okay, get rid of me today, but I'm going to come back tomorrow. That's how it evolved. It's cracking our immune system's code. It cracked it a long time ago. It knows how to do that. And these viruses are very likely to come back.
He says that is why coming up with a vaccine is a tough proposition as well, but he does say that treatment is improving. In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo is announcing a change to bring support to patients and to family.
Obviously, we need to be careful, but we'll allow visitors in hospitals
Same thing with group homes.
Now he does say strict precautions. President Donald Trump signs an executive order, he says, to help fund change for law enforcement.
As part of this new credentialing process, chokeholds will be banned, except if an officer's life is at risk.
He also says there'll have to be sharing of information so that troubled police don't go from department to department. And Congressman Jim Clyburn on Bloomberg TV with Kevin Cirilli.
Sound bites will get you a lot of headlines, but they don't make much headway. So I do believe we got to demilitarize, we got to restructure, we got to reform.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIP.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favorite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
This is a message from the government about the next stage of controlling coronavirus with NHS Test and Trace. To protect your friends and family,